All right, this broadcast is live. Welcome to Surviving Sales, another episode of Surviving Sales. You guys got here a little early. Shout out to Jonathan and Kirsten from Michigan and Florida, my home state, Florida. Topher, you were just in Florida, were you not?
I'm always in Florida because I live in Gainesville. But I did the state tour this last 8 days.
Yeah. Orlando and one other place. What was the other place?
Hollywood,
Hollywood.
Fort
Holly,
Lauderdale, and
Hollywood is
305.
that place. There used to be like a really good water park in Hollywood that all the kids in Miami would visit. I think it might still be there, but I think it's been like revamped. But I used to visit that water park a lot with my kids.
Right on.
All right, well, we're going to get into it here. Let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. We love to see the people that are from places that we visited. Shout out to Florida and Michigan. I've been to both of those places. Kirsten is an avid attendee. She comes to all of these, which I really appreciate. Today, I want to talk with Topher Jensen. Topher is the Director of Commercial Sales Manager at Gas South, which is the largest natural gas provider in the South. Am I right on that?
That is correct.
Yeah, so big money right there.
We try.
This is a commodity, right? So it's a little bit different. Again, the purpose of this show is to highlight sellers in different industries and learn from them. So Topher has kind of a really interesting traditional path. He started as an account executive and then became an events coordinator and a sales manager, and now the senior sales manager. And after decades of growth and leadership, he's developed a lot of skills. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Shout out England and New Jersey. A big London fan. I spent a lot of time in London, big time fish and chips fan. The best fish and chips I ever had in London. Topher, I want to start here because I think this is something that I want to highlight as the theme of this, but your sellers are much more transactional than what we typically see in the SaaS space. So what can SaaS people learn about being more transactional? Because you sell a commodity that is decide right now.
Sure. We are full cycle sales representatives, and you are correct. It is a commodity that's traded on the NYMEX, and we have an in-house trade room that buys and purchases natural gas. We're one of the largest gas traders in the country, and because of that, we're able to assist our customers in managing their natural gas needs, particularly now since gas is up 263% since the beginning of the year. I don't necessarily say they're transactional. We're more of consultative transaction sellers in this term that we still have to educate and we have to pitch our product, even if it's the same product that they may be using from a competitor. What the product is, obviously the sales rep themselves and the company. They're kind of intertwined. So from a transactional standpoint, we're full cycle. So we do everything from business development all the way through closing the deal and then handing it to our account managers.
All right. Most of the time what we see is the traditional predictable revenue model where it's separated out into segments. There's SDR that passes to an AE, that passes to a CS, and so on and so forth. CS will sometimes pass to support, right? We expect our people to build all these relationships. When you're working a full cycle seller, and you have a more transactional approach than what SaaS is familiar with, how do you bolt down that relationship and create some sense of loyalty between seller and buyer?
Sure. A lot of times in the commodity space, people tend to take a set it and forget it mindset, even if they are the provider themselves. They bring you in on a 12-month rate. I won't say what company, but they beam television to your house from space. And oftentimes, they invite you in with a 12-month rate, and on day 366, they flip you to another rate and you pay maybe 2 to 3 times as much. And that's common in utility industries as well. Our company and our teams, we take a different approach to that. Because we trade on that live market, we're able to do an analyzation of your entire natural gas portfolio, hedge that out into the future for you, and assist you in making budget decisions based on your comfort or level of risk. So it's not just transactional, it's always more educational, and that we do that by asking questions, getting a sense for.
Let's talk about some of those questions, because transactional approach for me means I need to ask the right questions at a faster rate to get the answers I need so I can move the conversation along in a quicker manner than what we typically see. So what's the first question that people typically have to ask? And if you want to talk a little bit about who you sell to in this moment, it might fit.
Sure. So we work across 15 states as a company. My team, however, focuses primarily on Florida, Georgia, Ohio, and New Jersey. Those are our four main markets, with the main focuses on Florida and Georgia. We sell to restaurants, hotels, dry cleaners, laundromats, small manufacturing, car collision places. The list goes on and on. I mean, the real answer is anybody who's using natural gas in a
That seems like the
utility.
first question.
That is I was going to get to that. That's going to be the first question. So, are you using natural gas is always going to be our first question. And that's going to give you a quick answer, yes or no. And then we take it from there, finding out how they're currently purchasing that gas, if they're using a provider or just with the utility. And oftentimes we're selling to every different customer type, a profile.
Now, I'm assuming that there's a no resource out there. So one of the things that we say a lot, especially in the SaaS space, is do your research and make sure that you're not asking questions that you might already know the answer to, or if you're going to ask questions that you already know the answer to, make sure that it aids in this person and the value that you're trying to deliver to them, not just to feed your pocket. I'm assuming that there's no big resource out there that your people use to be proactive. Like no facility is going to send them a list of here's everyone in your area that currently in your territory that currently uses natural gas. It's literally a have to ask, right?
Particularly in the Florida market, yes. The Florida market is made up of 5 different utilities that are open to the choice program, which is what we work through. Um, with that, yeah, you have to be a good detective. That's part of sales always. We do a lot of different research. We use LinkedIn. We have different websites that using the state business licenses. Again, knowing those key verticals are a part of it. Also, we're members of multiple associations throughout the state, or both states, that we work in. So those are places where we are able to ascertain who we need to speak with. So doing the research is key. Once you have that, then you're making the calls. And as I said, we're full cycle, so calling is king. We do a lot of outreach. We use a lot of email templates as well and automation, but we do have a higher rate of return on the phone still.
Yeah. So for those of you out there that are always saying about calling is dead, cold calling is dead, I assure you that in the commodities industry, calling is very much alive. In fact, I would argue that it's more effective than any other channel out there in the commodities space. This is not the first time I've seen this. Gas, light, power, they all rely very heavily on the phone, and it is extremely transactional. When we were prepping for this, you described an 8-step sales process that I would love for you to unfurl for our audience here, because process and structure is something we always focus on. And you've kind of trained, and I'll ask a question about this too afterwards, but you've kind of trained your people to have a balance or an integration, an API between, discovery that's very service centered, but also language that's very transactional. So what's this 8-step sales process you guys go through?
Sure. Well, once we're finally talking to somebody who's either a owner, or a controller, or director of purchasing, somebody who's able to make those decisions on the natural gas, we start out with our introduction. After we ascertain that they're using gas, it's the introduction. Who we are, quickly, what we do, and then we move on to a little bit of a purpose and description. Hey, we're calling to take a look at your current natural gas plans, find out when was the last time you were contacted by your provider. That's a nice segue question that opens the door for you to continue with that purpose and description. Then
what's the typical answer there? Let's pause on that one for just a moment, because this is where you guys really shine, I think.
You're right. The typical answer is, oh, I have no idea. Maybe never is oftentimes the answer. Again, when you go back to that set it and forget it model that a lot of businesses use, they're not that keen on following up. Oftentimes there's an auto renew policy. Again, having our account managers, we contact people 3 months before their agreement expires and give them the current market rate options. So after we go into that purpose and description, and once they say, oh, I've never been contacted, well, that's why I'm calling you. Exactly. We're able to start differentiating ourselves a little bit, and that gets us into the WIFMs, and that leads into your question, what's in it for me? Well, it's a better customer experience, far and away. We have a 4.7 rating on Google with thousands of reviews, highest rated energy marketer in the Southeast because of that. And the extra steps we take to ensure that the customer experience is better than they're used to. So We go from whiffins into probing questions.
Those probing questions, my belief is that when we use the word probe in the SaaS space specifically, it starts to come off a little bit aggressive. How do you teach your people to probe and ask probing questions, and be transactional in nature without being aggressive or coming off the wrong way?
Sure. Again, it's about the educational process. When was the last time that you took a look at your energy plan? Okay. Well, with the current escalations in the market, it's a great time to actually take a look at it. We do that analyzation, take a snapshot of what we predict their entire usage profile to look like. And because of that in-house trade room, we're able to offer prices all the way out for 60 months, which is a unique situation. And that gives you budgetary confidence and a secure price for that whole entire term. So we continue to ask questions that are, how has their previous experience been? What are they looking for?
When we were talking, you had mentioned that gas was up 136% year over year, but the number you gave me today, this was just a couple days ago, the number you gave me today was like 215, 213?
263 from the start of the year.
Yeah. So the reason I asked that question is because it seems like being on the up and up and watching this market is a skill that your salespeople have to develop over time if they want to do things like quote people accurately, if they want to do things like tell the story of inflation and how the economic downturn has impacted the commodities business in general. How has that happened, and how do those conversations typically unfold between buyers and sellers in your space?
Well, believe it or not, most people aren't reading natural gas trade journals on a daily
No
basis.
way.
Yeah, it's wild, man. They just don't do it. So we try to educate our team as often as possible. It's part of our continuous coaching and continuous education within the team, because if the market changes on a minute by minute basis, we need to be educated on the happenings of that market so that we can speak to them.
Yeah.
So what happened with the 263%? So to start with the year, we won't get too deep into it, but there have been some global tensions around the world that have caused gas supplies in Europe to be less secure. The United States has just become the world's largest exporter of natural gas. We surpassed Qatar and Australia this last year. Coal has been being done away with for a number of years, so more electrical firing stations are using natural gas. Where we used to see a dip in the summertime supply, we no longer see that over the last couple of seasons, not to the extent anyway. That has had an impact, and also pipeline projects have been scrapped around the nation, so the actual capacity and supply has been limited. So we saw a dip in the summer. I think that's right when we spoke, was after the fire at the Freeport LNG station, and that increased some domestic supply that would have been shipped overseas. That was expected to be out through the end of the year. However, they expect that to go back online sometime early October. So all of the gas that was going to go back into supply is now going to be shipped overseas again. And October just so happens to be when it gets cold. And historically, natural gas was a heat load product. So we would always, almost, I won't say always, but generally see rises in the wintertime as opposed to that summer. So all of those factors combined have increased the price of natural gas, like I said, 263% since the start of the year.
So this seems like, and this is probably more of like a sales manager's perspective here. I'm sure we have a few sales managers that are going to listen into this at some point when they watch back the recording, or even if you're on here right now. And if you are a sales manager, I think this is an important note, but this all seems like information that would be delivered to the team pretty regularly so that they would stay up to date and understand where their market currently lies so that they could have more effective conversations. Do you guys do like stand-ups where you're like, okay, everybody, here's where it is. This is the report for the week. It's good to know this stuff going in. We'll see you next week where we have more updates for you. Is that common?
Oh, that's very common. Like yourself, I'm an early riser, so by necessity, not because I love it, but it's, when you're going to squeeze it, that's when you got to get it in where it
Got to
fits
do
in.
it.
So by necessity, I'm up early, and one of the things I like to do when I get home before I get my son ready for school is I read those gas journals we were talking about. I share those links with the team, oftentimes trying to highlight the excerpts that are most impactful or that would have the most significance to our prospects and customers. and taking some of that work off of their plate so that they're able to pass that along. So
Yeah.
we do that. We also have the stand-ups on Monday. Used to be in the mornings, but since we've shifted to that work from home now, recently we've changed it to the afternoons. For some reason, people just don't get it, like gas journals. They're not that excited for an 8:45 meeting. I've seemed to have gotten better participation in the afternoons. So we do those in the afternoon. The team also, we have through our HR and training department a monthly sales refresher course that goes over, it's 12 different topics throughout the year. And those range on everything from prospecting to explaining market conditions to handling objections, all the way down the line. So
It's an interesting thing because I'm comparing in my mind something that I'm very familiar with, which is the SaaS sales model and that profile of a SaaS seller. And I'm comparing it to this commodity seller that actually has like a much faster sales process and probably manages it a little bit differently because you guys sell to an audience that I'm going to imagine is relatively distracted. I'm imagining somebody that runs a restaurant as a
yeah,
as a former 15-year restaurant veteran. I can say that when I'm reaching out to, or if I'm in the thick of my day as a food professional, I don't have time to stop what I'm doing at the expediting counter and step over and take this call and then have a 30-minute conversation about my gas bill. So how do you guys fit this in? How do you manage that and find these people where they have time?
you that's a excellent question, James. And as a former restaurant kid myself, from for almost nearly 15 years as well, it was my first job and lasted a long
Same.
time. Got to meet a lot of wonderful people along the way.
Great people.
How do we manage that? So it starts with that educational piece when we're calling like, hey, when was the last time you took a look at this? We will occasionally have a one call close. You might find somebody who is just sitting back and the phone rings and they go, oh, hot diggity damn, I was just waiting for somebody to call and talk to me about natural gas. Now that'll happen, but it's not every day.
Rare, yeah.
It's certainly not every call. So oftentimes, you're setting it just as a BDR would, you're setting that first impression, you're setting up the next appointment, but you're managing your own calendar, you're setting your own appointments, you're building your own pipeline. Every call is an opportunity to continue building your pipeline in
Yeah.
one way or another. So what we do is we set those appointments. Oftentimes we'd like to do a lot of the back end work ahead of time for them by getting those analyzations done, taking a look at what they've been doing so that they don't have to spend as much time.
Mm.
We go through the same process of the 8 steps, which we jumped off of, but once we got into the probing questions. So once we removed those, that's when we start doing the product offerings. We're like, this is what we are able to put out there for you. And we give them multiple options. We can do everything we could do a 1-month contract. I wouldn't recommend it right now, but from anywhere all the way out to those 60 months. So we deliver the product options. And that's again by asking questions, because there are options whether you want a fixed rate or a variable rate. If you are a market guru and you feel that you want to ride that change that happens on a monthly basis, that by all means we could set that up.
Some of this seems like it might be contingent on things that affect the market. So my immediate thought is back to the webinar that we did with Adrian and Meg Holsinger, and John and Moore Asseline earlier this week about selling in a down economy. How has your industry, or even the commodities industry overall, been impacted by recent events?
Sure. I want to wrap up one last thought on that before on our previous thing. When we're talking about those sales cycles, as I said, there will be the occasional one call close.
Sure.
But there are oftentimes when we're setting that appointment, the sales cycle is typically 2 to 3 months is our average. But we also have sales that take 2 years, sometimes 3, because we're bound by contracts that may already be in existence.
We're selling
Things
to like a
that
big corporate entity like Applebee's, right? Like that's huge.
it not even just the Applebee's. Those are certainly ones that we often have larger windows on, but even smaller establishments. As I said, we sell everything from mom and pop delis all the way up to the largest industrial customers on the East Coast
Yeah.
and in the Southeast. So those things have an effect, and so that's why that pipeline building is so crucial to our team's success and why we do make the cold calls, as we spoke to earlier.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what's affected us recently, the team has performed admirably, extraordinarily well. One advantage that I believe we have in that it's a commodity, right? it's not a product, it's not an optional.
Yeah.
If you're
If you
using
run a
natural,
restaurant, you need gas.
well, or if you run boilers or you run pool heaters, if you run
Fryers.
laundry facilities, you're not going to say, okay, well, you can wash your clothes, but you can't dry them today. Sorry, here's your net of wet stuff.
Right.
They're not going to do that. So they have to use natural gas to continue to run their business. What we're looking to do is help them do that in the most advantageous way.
Mm.
So for us, the selling hasn't stopped. In fact, I would say that the volatility has actually been good for the environment of people being aware of their natural gas. Sticker shock has certainly been something that has set in recently.
Oh.
If you weren't priorly hedging, managing, or looking at your natural gas, and it again has gone up as significantly as it has, and you're on those variable rates, they're rising in kind with the market. So you could see you may have been used to $500 bills, and now you're receiving $1,500 bills. That will perk somebody's interest up pretty
Oh,
quickly.
sure.
So that part has been interesting. In fact, it's kind of, I've told my team we need to reach out to as many people as possible right now because gas is on the forefront of everyone's mind.
Yeah, it seems like that kind of change is the thing that you see a lot on places like Twitter and Facebook communities that are regional, right? You'll say, hey, is anybody getting weird bills from the electric company? The same thing can be said when you have that difference in a $500 monthly gas bill. And then one day you open it up and you're like, oh, crap, this is a $1,500 bill. What changed? So let's talk about what keeps your people actively qualifying and discovering through all of this. Is it compensation? Do you adjust accordingly? Do their goals kind of shift as you guys watch this market? What changes have you guys had to make to keep them actively doing what they're supposed to be doing every day?
So the team, we're in a really fortunate position. We have an exceptionally tenured team. The lowest tenure on my team is nearing 2.5 years, almost 3.
So
So
lots of experience there.
yeah, there's a ton of experience across the team, and they perform extraordinarily well. So they are, it's sales, and so they are compensationally motivated for sure. As far as goals, the goals stay the same. That we haven't adjusted goals, but we have been looking to find new avenues to help in the job. What you and I met in actually at the AAISP in Chicago. Shout
Right.
out.
Great place.
It was a good time. And full of great information. Met a lot of wonderful people, and so I have had the honor of going on the Tech Stack World Tour recently. So we are looking. I have gotten to see a lot of SaaS demos. It's I've learned all about the Medic method and lots of things. So we have been looking to increase our tech presence and helping provide them with the right tools. Whether
Yeah.
that be better lists, uh, you know, business analyst reports that help ascertain where our opportunities may be. Our trade room has been spectacular, letting us know when they find opportunities to work across different pipelines that are more advantageous at the time, so that the team reaps those benefits. So just more support is generally how we've been pushing forward.
One of the things that we talked about when I got to speak with your team was the way they manage their time, because they're full cycle. It's kind of like having to wear a lot of hats, and sometimes time management practices and the way that we govern our time throughout our day-to-day routines has to shift so that we can improve our efficiency. Have you guys made big shifts in the way time is managed in a day-to-day sales rep's life?
So I'm a huge proponent of Dan Pink's philosophy.
Daniel Pink, great
Daniel
guy.
Pink's right back
This
here.
masterclass is lit up.
It is. And so there's a great video where he talks about the principles of autonomy, uh, mastery, and purpose. And I just shortened it to AMP. Let's get amped, because no one wants to be micromanaged. I
Yeah.
certainly don't want to micromanage anyone. That's a miserable thing to do for all parties involved. But without accountability, autonomy can run roughshod. So that's why KPIs are important. That's why metrics and numbers are important. But as far as organizing their day, we try our best to let them handle that how they would like.
Yeah.
And that seems to work pretty well. Mastery, we go back to the fact that we do have that continuous training. We are constantly trying to provide information as a group. There's also, we have Teams chats that where the news is posted. That's where, and anyone's welcome to contribute to that. So we have team members that are also doing their own research or providing resources into that. So it's very much a culture of camaraderie, I believe, is a portion of it. Purpose, I'd like to say that I didn't drive to anybody's house. I used to say I wouldn't drive there in a van, put a hood over their head and drag them to the office. Now I just don't go into their house and drag them 25 feet from their bed to their desk.
Yeah.
Everybody comes on their own volition because they have a purpose of, providing for their families, providing for their quality of life and support their own goals and dreams and aspirations. So the purpose is sort of built in. But on top of that, Gas South is committed to being a fuel for good. So 5% of our net profits go back to children in need across the states that we service, primarily
Nice.
Georgia and Florida. Yeah, we were able. Yeah, thank you. We were able to donate $500,000 to the Step Up for Students program in Florida, which is committed to supporting children's different learning styles. So that contribution will provide 65 scholarships to kids in Florida, which, as a dad and as a member of the community, I think that's a pretty amazing thing. So that purpose is already built in if we're trying to talk about that autonomy, mastery, and purpose. But back to your original question of how do they manage their day? Decision makers are often up early. There's oftentimes I'm a big fan of trying to get calls in early in the day and saving later in the day for emails and things of that nature.
Right.
And building it out. We have the Outlook calendar, we have Salesforce tasks, we have people. You should be building a pipeline. I always recommend having that hot sheet of writing your goals down is a big thing. I think last time we spoke, we talked a little bit about atomic habits and James Clear. I think that's
yep. You turned me on to that, and I get those emails all the time now. They're cool, man. They're very insightful.
Right. Yeah. They're short. I love that part about them. I mean, it is a busy world. He keeps it concise, and the 1, 2, 3 on Thursdays is a nice thing to receive.
It is.
So people are, want to be autonomous. Then as long as you prove yourself capable of a set autonomy, you can schedule it how you want. I personally, if I were making the calls that day, would want to do them early in the morning and then space them out throughout the day because, things will happen and come up as they always do, both professionally and personally in life. Change is the only constant in life. So the more apt we are at dealing with that, the easier it is to move forward and navigate. My personal motto, one of them is hold fast and hang loose. So you kind of got to keep the combination of the two. Hold fast like you're an old-timey British sailor. Shout out to the person from England. And, also stay able to adjust and move if you're riding a big wave.
What, with a couple minutes left before we wrap this up, top takeaway for anyone in the show today, what have you learned in all of your years in sales that would be beneficial for our people to hear?
Oh man, you can't really see it, but I have a sign that says attitude is everything. Pick a good one. I think that with a good attitude and a little bit of hard work, you can get almost anything accomplished. Stay positive because it is sales. You better get used to hearing the word no, and you better not take it. Q-tip is another thing I like to say. Quit taking it personally.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
it's not personal, and we say that a lot here. Sales is definitely something that you've got to be thick-skinned to be a professional at. Well, Topher, I want to say thank you so much for your time today, sharing your wisdom with everybody. There's so much nuggets packed into this. And what's the best way for people to reach you really quick?
You can hit me up on LinkedIn. That would be great. I'd love to continue any of these sales discussions. I love meeting new people. It's part of one of the reasons I'm in sales. So, you can do that. You'll have to look for the fist and the hang loose symbol on the sides of my name. And we can connect that way. Shoot me a note. I'd be happy to have discussions.
Well, thanks for coming in, man. We really appreciate it. And anything you need from me, I'm always a resource for you. Thank you to all of you for coming in and joining the show today. We will see you next time we bring back Surviving Sales. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks for your time, James. Have a great day.
See you, brother.
Cheers.